Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode on the Codecast. Today we have Charles Njoku, who has created Spire and who's here to share his experience from being a designer to actually being a founder of a company. I'd like to welcome Charles to the stage to give us a quick introduction about himself. Over to you, Charles.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Charles Njoku, and I am generally a product designer, but more recently, I am a tech entrepreneur and currently the co-founder and CEO of Spire.
Yeah, that's awesome. Usually when we hear about co-founders or founders of companies, the first thing that comes to people's minds is the person is either an engineer or someone who has spent a lot of time on business development. So it's actually very interesting, and it's also nice to see that there are other alternatives and other paths to becoming a founder. You don't have to start. You don't have to check certain boxes that are listed somewhere because realistically, there are no limitations, there are no boxes. So let's start a bit back end. How did you get into product design? What's inspired you? How did you start?
Yeah, I think when I get asked this question, I always like to start from like way back and walk people through several very interesting parts of my story that's actually given me not just influence, but a cutting edge in a lot of the successes I recorded. So I was born into a family that already had a computer business center as far back as 1998, 1999. Computers were very redundant as at then. So you know of Pentium 1, Compaq, and all those PC way back then. And my mom was a typist. My dad was just a general businessman. Um, and they both built a computer business center at far back as then. And I was literally born into that. It didn't take up to when I was 7, I could type at 30 words per minute. Um, I was always on my beacon teachers typing. My mom was a typist, so obviously you
Yeah,
get if I didn't know how to type out. So by the time I was 10, I was already helping my mom to type client work, you get. And by 14, my dad bought me a computer of my own. It was a HP NC 630. I remember that very well. It was a very old laptop way back then. And by 16, I was already helping with managing the family business. Then my parents had already pivoted from just a general computer business center to a printing press. So a lot of graphic work and artwork started becoming a thing then. And within that time, that was when I also picked design. I would design obituary posters, magazines, business marketing flyers. Not now that we have buzzwords for all of those things. To be honest, back then, in a traditional sense, there was no buzzword. It was just almost, I want to print poster. What is the poster for? Where poster? Business. There was no name for. There was nothing like brand identity, visual identity, and all those matters. Um, yeah, so it was core traditional printing business, and I was literally into it. I was managing a family business as young as 16. Um, by this is way back as using Corel Draw 9, Windows 95, Windows XP, NT, and all of that. Not now that we use the internet to download elements we use for our work, you get far back as then. What we used then was called Print Artist or Instant Artist. You get this were softwares that were loaded with funny, what's it called, illustrations you install and you download to use. There was no internet, and obviously. So almost everything that you couldn't find on Print Artist, you literally had to come up with it. Long before I even started using Photoshop, I use Corel Draw to actually crop out the background of images. to have them transparent so I could work with them. You get. So when I fall back to say I did like core design work where we did everything granular, I mean, I had that experience. You get. As time continued to go on, I mean, every year meant I learned something new. By the time I was in university, by the time I got into the university, that was when the tech buzz started picking up, and I started exploring other aspects of what I can do with a computer. And so obviously programming was like the next big thing. And yeah, way back then in my uni, I actually, I mean, except for my first year, or probably maybe first, second year, for most part of after then, I was a big shot because I was printing virtually every poster on campus. I had printed magazines for more than half of the departments across. If I wasn't printing, I was designing, and someone was printing. I had few folks who were all doing the business back then in school. You get, but somehow, so it wasn't that I wasn't satisfied. I think it was a case of my dad at the time had wanted me to become a doctor. I was studying biochemistry at the time, and the plan was to finish biochemistry and go to med school. I knew I didn't want to do that, so I had to find something that really, really was something I was passionate about. One, I was something that had potential of becoming rich, to be honest. Because my dad's biggest fear, he didn't want any of us to get into the family business as a lifetime, as something we would need to use to sustain our life. He didn't, he for him was like, I mean, I did this stuff and it was 100 times better than anything my father's did. You get, I would want you guys to do something way, way, way more better than all of this. And so he felt like being a doctor offered me that access. You get, I could be a doctor in Nigeria today and have the opportunity to practice anywhere in the world and grow generational wealth as in my team. But I never wanted to become a doctor. I didn't, it wasn't me. Naturally, as a person, I'm too cranky to become a doctor. It's just too much work. You get, so I had to find a way. It was at that, within that time, I decided I was going to make a career out of this thing. I was going to figure out how, I know there are people they call computer gurus, computer geniuses and all of that. So how did they make their life out of this thing? I want to find that out, and that's what I'm going to do. And you know what I did? I left school. I stopped going to classes. Yeah, in my third year, I completely stopped going to classes, stopped watching myself about school, and spent hours on ending hours in front of my PC, learning stuff. And when I said hours, I could sit down on my PC for good 20 hours non-stop.
Wow, that's the hustle.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times when I hear people about dedication, I was like, to be honest, a lot of us had it really hard. And I'm happy today a lot of people have even communities to join. Then I didn't have any community. It was just me and some guys. Okay, I would call that my community because we literally, unknowing to us, we actually motivating each other. Someone comes to them like, bro, how far, did you see this thing I found out? And everybody starts checking it out and we start moving on. And in 2000 and towards the ending of 2015, I found Upwork. It was called Elands, I visit Olands. And by 2016, they got acquired or something and they became Upwork. And I got my first remote job in 2016. This was when remote was hardly a thing. Like remote work was, I mean, probably some very lofty dreams way back then. You get, I got my first remote job with a marketing firm in the US. They're currently one of the biggest. And I was a web scraper, data analyst. I was mostly a lead generation expert. I was just helping them get to acquire leads for their marketing engine to target.
Right.
You get, so they were mostly doing marketing for folks who have campaigns in Indiegogo and Kickstarter. You get, so I would go and do research, generate leads, and I think I spent roughly about 2 years with them, and in that time I probably generated over 7 point something million leads. You get, so
yeah, that's an amazing introduction. I wasn't expecting the parts where you actually left school to work on this, because the thing is, there, like you said earlier on, there are different paths that people take, different challenges that come across the way, and everyone finds their way around it. So I think it makes a lot of sense that with your dedication, and also with the being in an environment where there's already business happening, so your mind is already tuned to think of, how do I get this thing?
exactly,
Like
exactly.
it's already a part of you. So it's
Exactly. I always try to point out that part of my privilege, because just being born within that setting already built a mindset that you can't really train anybody with. No matter how much courses someone take, you can't really give. They have to cultivate it. And for me, right from growing up within the environment I grew up in, I'd already had like a business mindset. You get, and so just tracking back my experience with the company was called Funded Today, and that was the first time I ever earned in USD, in dollars. This was when dollars was even less than 200 naira. You get, way back then. You
yeah.
get, and I was being paid, I think, between $3 to $4 per hour. You get, and I was working 40 hours a week. You get, and that was the first time I had an exposure to a global audience. I began to see how the world works. My worldview completely changed. You get, it started changing. Now I was no longer seeing this tech thing as just small thing I do with my PC. I started seeing myself as the guy who can be anywhere and reach ends of the earth. You get, it gave me, that completely changed my exposure and my mindset. And that was when I knew this is what I wanted to do. You get, I never wanted to be constrained by my location or by where I'm from or by who I am. You get, I wanted to be able to reach anywhere with just having to be able to offer value. And after my experience before, I worked with so many from US to Australia to Israel, so many folks, and that continued to open my mind. I knew, to be honest, data analysis, lead generation, and all of that was too stressful, to be honest. It was killing. And I knew I needed to do something else. And so that was, at the same time, the buzz around engineering started coming up, and I tried being a front-end engineer. I did that for a while. I actually even have like 3 projects I built. And in fact, a full-on startup of its own that I actually built, QView.ai, is currently live. You get, and so this was a time where, it was pure HTML, CSS. There was nothing like framework. You get, most of the JavaScript, I literally had to watch tons and tons of YouTube to even understand what I was doing. You get, there was no I wasn't using any of the current frameworks guys use. So it was pure vanilla JavaScript and then core HTML, CSS at the time. You get, but to be honest, I knew engineering wasn't for me. I didn't feel it. It didn't feel. I think it was in a conversation with a Google engineer who I helped work on a project via Upwork that told me, oh, you could try what's it called, UI UX. It's not engineering, but you help design the interface of a program, of a software, since you already have a design background. I was like, really? That was when I started exploring UI UX. And prior to this time, I had done brand identity. I actually was mentored and trained by one of Nigeria's foremost brand designer, Yorks. I think a lot of people in the Nigeria ecosystem will know him. I had this it was a remote class, met him off Instagram, and we had this very interesting remote class. The guy completely changed my perspective about brand design, and that was my first experience with brand design. You get, so after all of that, I was like, the guy was like, you already have an excellent design background. You could try UI UX. That was the first time I knew what UI UX was, and I began to teach myself UI UX, taking all the courses I could take, speak to people, trying out design interfaces. You get, the first design I ever designed publicly was for a competition, and it was organized by LRE. It's a creative design company in Nigeria. You get, and the context was to design a website for the Nigerian government, same like www.nigeria.gov.ng. You get, and I did design that stuff, and I came second. I was the first runner up for it, and I think someone saw it. I was like, it was really smart. It wasn't just about the design; it was the reason behind some of the components I used. You get, it didn't feel like it was someone who wanted to make something pretty. It was also about the function, and you could see, for example, even the marketing copy, my idea around. I literally explained every section and what it was going to do and why it was needed. Again, in fact, a lot of people who voted for the context came back to the section. I was like, no, I was supposed to be the winner. You get, I got a lot of, someone actually, so I think my price then was 30,000 naira. Someone actually called me and asked me to send me my account number, and the person sent an extra 20,000 naira that I was supposed to be the winner. He didn't understand why they chose the other person, that I was actually supposed to be the winner. And that was when I knew, okay, maybe this is the stuff I need to be doing.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much my introduction, my like opening to UI UX, and from them henceforth, I started freelance. I just changed my portfolio and like, oh, I'm a UI UX designer again. And I started doing lots of freelance work. While I was a UI UX designer as a freelancer, I got my first job as a creative designer, and I was in marketing and communications department at a company in Lagos, Softcom. You get, so while I was doing mostly marketing and comms work, you get, on the other hand, I was a UX designer in stealth mode. You get, and I think just within my experience around that, I was also going for like product thinking classes, product design courses, and all of that. I could remember one that was held at Impact Hub in VI. I remember that was a that was, in fact, one of the avenues where I felt like, okay, this is what I need to do, because then I started understanding design was not only just about the aesthetics and putting color and all of that. It was the thinking, product thinking fascinated me. You get, product thinking could be applied to just about anything. You get the entire process of researching, analyzing, building your thoughts around people's mental models, literally just reiterate until you find something that really works. It was really interesting, and I was sold completely, because I'm the guy who always thinks, who I'm very creative with coming out with solutions, and that seemed like a very interesting thing to do. I think just after about a year of working at Softcom, I got offered my first UX design job, and that was the first official UX design job I ever held. And I left Softcom and I joined them. And it was basically, this guy is taking a risk, a chance on me, because there are other people who were already established UX designer who applied for the role. So I mean, me getting it was an interesting thing. I can remember the test they gave for the role. I actually submitted a 10-page response to the test. Yeah, I spent nights and I was literally analyzing the entire thing, explaining why it's important, making references to core research points, even industry standards, all of that. I literally went all in on that, and I got the job. Fun fact, I had only started doing UX design for roughly over 2 years, but I also got the spot to speak at Social Media Week in February 2020. You get, so just thinking about it now, I just realized that being new at something has never stopped me from going all in and even positioning myself as a top leader, or maybe someone who's already been doing this stuff. You get,
Yeah.
and I think just speaking to you now, I just realized that. But yeah, that was literally how I got into product design, to be honest. And since then, I have been part of design communities. I've been mentoring young designers as well, contributing to open source design. Yeah, that's basically it so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah, it's a very 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 detailed, and of course it's definitely shows the amount of dedication that's gone into it. But I think the main key points from this section so far has been it's very important for people to look within themselves and find their existing strengths, right? And sometimes you may not be able to see it. So being in a community can help because, or even just interacting with others can help because they can point it out. For example, the Google engineer who pointed out the UI UX background. Another important thing there is, if people can't find a community, then they can still try to create one for themselves.
Exactly.
Now, going into the actual product design work, my question now is, going forward, who is Square for, right? What was the inspiration to build Square, and what is the vision of the company?
Okay, so I will start by saying Spire started just even before we found the name Spire. It started from a conversation we were having in one of our design communities, Asha Koteri, and it was just about how I think a junior designer pointed out that we always talk about designing with data, having insight to design and all of that. But the problem is, how do they actually even test their design and get that data you get? And I was like, oh, that's true. We've never really focused on that. And we are like, the company I worked for at the time currently used no, they didn't use user testing. I was actually the one who started using usertesting.com and sometimes look back. I'll use look back one time. I was like, oh, this is a platform you can use and all of that. The same person came back and said the platforms were expensive, and true. Look back charges $99 per month. User testing charges high up as $199 even. You get, she was like, it was too expensive. How can junior designers not even, because they go to interviews and people are asking them, oh, have you designed with data before? How do you make design decisions, blah, blah. And the other process is to do it manually, which sometimes the results from that experience is flawed, and also the collection is tedious and all of that. And so that was when I asked, but come to think of it, if this is a problem, why can't we just build something simple we can use for ourselves here in Nigeria? You get, I think I was like, what are other products we can build for ourselves in Nigeria that is really important? And someone again mentioned that user testing, we should try it out. And I was like, you know what, let's do it. And so I slept on it, looked at user testing, thought about it, went to bed, woke up the next morning. I was like, you know what, you're going to build usertesting.com, but for Nigeria. I started researching and checking out what it would take to do that. And I was like, you know what, I don't want to build this as a side project. I'm thinking this could become a company. I mean, we have a growing design community in Nigeria. You get, so there's a market already. And all large companies are coming up and could be very useful. And so I reached out to a few people. I eventually settled on my speaking to my friend, Njoku, who is currently my co-founder. And I'm like, yo, what's up? Do you think you're ready to build a company? He was like, he has not thought of it, he's not sure. I was like, me too, I'm not sure, because I didn't start the year. I didn't start my year to decide I was going to build a company. I just got my first international full-time role, paying me good money. I might as well enjoy this money this year and decide if next year is the time to build a company. But I really can't sleep thinking about this, and I think we should look into it. I should give him time to see. And next morning he called me, was like, yeah, he thinks it's something we can build. While we were speaking, Flutterwave just announced becoming a unicorn, their $1 billion valuation. And all of a sudden, that just spiked my adrenaline. You get, and to be honest, I'm an adrenaline-driven person. If my adrenaline is high up, you can get out to literally do anything. I can do so many things. And I can't explain, far back as then, I couldn't explain why, but I think now I get it, you get. I think it was just the knowledge that if Flutterwave can become a unicorn, that opens the ecosystem to so many product companies.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And that means that opens up the market even more. And that means we can actually validate this to become a business and really, really build something out of this. That was when I told my guy that, you know what, we are not doing this thing as a side gig, we're building a company, let's find a business name ASAP. It took us 2 weeks to come up with that name, Spire, and it literally came from the word experience. It's the phonetics of experiences, experience, and so we just pulled out the Spire, it's like the middle of the word, and we just pulled out that word down. I was like, that's the name. I mean, we had several other names come up, and we were thinking, but when I just called my co-founder, I was like, I think I found the name. And he said, what's the name? I said, Spire. He literally screamed and said, that's the name. And the thing with the name is, if it is the name, you will know. I mean, there's no other logical way to explain it, to be honest. I can tell you all the razzmatazz we did to come up with the name, but the point is, the moment I said Spire, it slapped, it made sense, it sticks, you get, and that was all that mattered. And we went to the name, and we started doing all the modalities around defining what the company. For 2 weeks, I had to leave my house in Lagos and go to his house that was way towards Ogun State, Lagos about an expressway. And I spent 2 weeks in his house. And for that 2 weeks, we were talking about the company vision, defining a lot of stuff. And one company that literally inspired us was Qualtrics. You get, Qualtrics is an experience platform, and we started reading their history, where they came from, where they are now, and the impact they have in the world. And it wasn't just the fact that Qualtrics is an experience management platform. It was the fact that they had a history and philosophy that was similar to the way I personally was thinking, and as well as even a co-founder. And for me, it was about experience. It was that, and there's this quote I used to have on my LinkedIn, you get, and it was, in fact, I think when you open my website, some of the quotes you see, it was like, I mean, life will evolve, people will become several things and all of that. My one goal is to help elevate their experience wherever they are. You get, as life continues to evolve, obviously the experience evolves, and I want to be able to help people elevate that experience. And literally, Qualtrics' philosophy was built on actually bettering the experience of humanity. And it was something that we completely understood from when we started looking at it. And that got us thinking, how can Spire become more than just a user testing company? To be honest, it's overwhelming building the philosophy around the business. I won't tell you for a fact it's easy peasy, it's crazy. But we started off deciding, you know what, let's even leave this whole philosophy and vision thing. Let us go and check if this can actually be a business. So, because we might come up with the best philosophy in the world. And if it's not a business, we'll become a failed, inspiring business. And will be used in case studies and all of that.
Yeah.
And so I think that signaled the first tweet I made about it. And I tweeted, yo, would you like, so we just asked a few people, a few businesses, and what's your problem with really testing your product and knowing if customers like it? There was like, see, we want to do research. We want to speak to our entire audience, but the problem is there's nobody to do it for us, or there's nobody. If we schedule meeting with people, they'll promise they will come out. We don't see them. I'm like, how can you people say there's nobody? There's literally over how many million people with their mobile phones always chatting shit on Twitter and all of other places. You literally get them for a few minutes and get your. In my mind, that seems to have been like really easy, but when I started realizing it's not even easy, and I was like, you know what, let's do something. And I just tweeted, would you like to test digital products you get and get rewarded for it? Literally, people were asking me, where can we sign up? It wasn't a matter of yes or no. People wanted to know where they would sign up. I was like, oh, really? You people, that tweet had an impression of over 5,000 and over hundreds of comments. I can't remember the stats. And that was the very first signal that we could really be doing something here. And so we came up with a name. That night I couldn't sleep. We came up with a name we called the Spire Crowd. I just opened, already before then I could use Webflow. So I just opened Webflow and built a landing page with a form, a sign-up form, put things together, and the next day we went live. You get, call the Spire, we'll sign up to Spire Crowd, get rewarded for testing products and giving your feedback, blah, blah. By the time I slept that day and woke up, we had over 700 people sign up. By the third day, over 2,000 people signed up. And that was when I was like, we need to stop this thing, because we haven't even figured how we would like categorize them, filter them, arrange all of that. And we were already exceeding our subscription with how much people can sign up via Webflow forms and all of that. Usually used to be 1,000. I found a way to bypass the process. I was always deleting, I would export the data, delete it so that I count on 1,000 again. You get, and I was like, we can't keep up with this. And we switched it to a waiting list. Currently, that waiting list has over 1,000 people. You get, and we didn't know we were facing bigger problems. And we now say, we now have audience of people who want to test products, their name, phone number, the city they live in, their emails. We could always target them and keep pushing this. And so we say, you know what? Oh yeah, let's go back to these businesses that said their problem was not finding people. Okay. And I sent out another tweet, reached out to a few personal people, and over 90 businesses in the course of that time reached out to us. These were people we even had sometimes 30 to 1 hour fact-finding call to just understand their problem and how they needed us to solve them. Here's the funny thing here. When we sent out a tweet, it was about testing products here. By the time we asked businesses to reach out to us, that now we have people that can test their product and give them feedback, we discovered user testing was not their problem. That in fact, product discovery was the problem. You get, and most of these businesses were early stage startups or even idea stage startups that have not even kicked off. And then we are not necessarily looking for some that didn't, in fact, more than half of them didn't have products test. You get, they actually wanted to validate their idea. You get, understand what customer wants, you get, and all of that. But we are positioned as a testing company and not a market validation or customer research company. You get, and but that was what I'm saying, realizing that user testing is just a pinch in a heap of sand. You get, because it's until the startup does customer research, validates their idea, get feedback before they can even build a version 1 of the product they can test. You get, so user testing is just a component in all of that. And we discovered the big problem was product discovery. At the end of the day, up to date, imagine we've spoken to over 100 potential customers, and at the end of today, we probably have only done just 10. We probably only invoice 10 customers. You get, and 10 of those customers, we've just done roughly just north of $1 million, and disbursed over 300,000 in tester incentives, because obviously for testers we give them incentives for doing that. Okay, so that was when we realized that there's a bigger problem, and not just there's a bigger problem, there's a bigger market.
Right.
You get, and this is currently why it seems like even from the time we made those announcements, people thought we were like launching like ASAP. I was like, it would be better we do not launch product one to force into people's hands, force usage of that. It is better we go back to the drawing board and really build product people want. And that was when I even started learning about product-led growth. Started learning about a lot of product-led strategies and all that. And I was like, nah, I don't want to ever chase people or force products in people's hands. I want people to use this product and learn the value. And we moved on from that to now speaking to already established startups. You get, from PMs to product marketers and all of that. And their own problem was different. And this is even giving us core insight, even for the fact that we are not just first in the market, we literally have an opportunity to define what what's called product discovery and feedback management would be like for the next African product, for product teams across Africa. So it's something that doesn't exist anywhere. All product teams, we currently speaking to a lot, they use foreign products that does not necessarily give them context. You get, there's just so many things that are still missing out for them, you get. And that was when we realized that we needed to roll back a few things and start from building from bottom up. Currently, Spire is focused on one thing. You get, Spire is focused on feedback management. You get, we want to help, whether it is startups or established product teams, to be able to collect feedback from anywhere and from everyone. You get, wherever feedback lies, we are building infrastructure that will help them collect feedback from all of those places, whether it is from social media, from Google Play Store, from app stores, any users litter everywhere with annoying feedback. You get, you can't force them. But one thing we discover is you can't go and tell customers, oh, you must use this channel. If you don't use this channel, we will not answer you. You will lose the customer. They'll literally leave you there.
Yeah.
They don't care. If you ask a customer, have you given this company you're complaining about, have you given them feedback? They'll tell you, hey, now, I was in Telegram group the other day, and but the business is not even in Telegram. They don't have representatives on Telegram looking to pick that up. But just by understanding that Spire is just focused on, currently we're focused on helping product teams collaboratively put all of their feedback into one place, help them organize it and help them make sense of it. That's what at the core we currently focused on doing. For product discovery, for as many early stage startups, idea stage startups, or just about anyone who wants to do customer research, customer market validation, all of that. We already have Spire Crowd, and what we want to do is help them, connect them to their target audience, to speak to them, hear from them, and gain insights from all of the learnings they can get, whether it's via customer interviews, surveys, or even testing a product idea. So these are like the two core things Spire is currently focused on currently.
Wow. Yeah, I think, even as you're explaining, even for me, I'm beginning to see, this is actually something that I myself need. And there are different times in the past where I've tried different things, either, on my own or working, with others, and realized, there were some mistakes that we made, or lots of mistakes that we made, which could have actually been solved if enough time was spent, really understanding what the target audience wants and how to actually get it into their hands. Because the things you could be saying one thing, but people are hearing it in a different way, right? In your example, right, the users weren't just involved in, they weren't just doing user testing, right? They were actually, the testing was just one component of the greater job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we want to offer their entire experience, test, hear from them, engage them. And I mean, there are so many use cases from this approach we take in currently. And in fact, one of the most interesting one we figured out recently is why product managers are responsible for taking feedback and converting all of that to an actual actionable insight for engineering or design. You get a lot of feedback rests with the guys from customer success or customer support. And guess what? When we spoke to guys from customer support, their biggest problem is communicating feedback received from customers to either the product manager responsible or the product team, whether it's engineering or design. You get to hear things like, oh, I don't understand this thing you say the customer says a problem. Let us get on a call with the customer and figure this out. And we discover that, in fact, in the whole of our interview, we discovered the biggest problem to solve for first is feedback collection. How do feedback get into the system in the first place? So just like this scenario I explained now, imagine a situation where a customer, as a customer, you can literally figure out, you can really have a problem on using the product. And instead of looking for the customer care line, let me give you one very funny thing we figured out to get. Customer says one of the biggest things they hate doing is looking for where the customer care line is. I have people say the reason why they go on Twitter to rant about a problem to a company is because, one, they either couldn't find the customer care phone number, because for them, they would literally call and scream at them. That would have been easier for them. The very funny, interesting things we've heard this past few months have been killing us. But it's also insightful. It just shows where the problem really lies. And one of the things we're thinking with feedback collection, especially when it comes to customer support, is how might we enable the customer to communicate what the problem is clear enough that the customer support person do not have to schedule several calls just for clarification. I'll give you a personal instance. I had a problem with my account. I think that was with Braz, and it took up to 4 calls with me having to even share my screen for it to get fixed. Imagine a scenario whereby, what if right there when I was having the problem, there's a simple floating button there where I can click and screen record what my problem is while speaking to what's called, what the problem is. And the moment I'm done, all of that gets packaged and sent to customer support. And the next time customer support is contacting me is giving me a solution to my problem and not asking me to clarify again. That completely removes that redundancy and as well as speeds up the amount of time being spent on customer tickets. And as you continue to get even similar problems, you could categorize, automate all of that process for, in terms of use case and response case as it goes on. So there are so many possibilities to how we are solving the problem. But one thing I always tell people is, number one, we are very, very focused on building the infrastructure for collaborative feedback management.
Yeah, yeah. So now before we get to close here, so the way to my understanding of Spire is that this is a company that is really focused on helping startups and the founders or anybody who's managing the products to really understand what exactly their customers or their target audience needs from them, and how to actually provide them with the proper responses to the feedback they've received.
Yeah, basically that's it for us. There's something I wrote on my Twitter bio. Oh, it's a pinned tweet. Let me check it out. Let me read it. It captures completely how I see Spire and how I really want people to see Spire. And I said, Spire will power Africa's most ambitious product companies. That's the vision. But at the core, we will do this by helping them to build beautiful connections with their customers that will learn what their customers want and build products their customers love. You get, so at the core of it is building that connection. And I mean, obviously, comes with helping product companies collect feedback effectively, helping them analyze that and provide insight, just empowering them through all of that journey into eventually delivering what the customer wants. And for us, we came up with a methodology we called the life cycle of feedback. And I'm probably not supposed to say this, but yeah, we are actually making a movie out of that. It's maybe not a movie, but it's a very aspirational video around that. It's called the life cycle of feedback. You get where it's born, what happens to it when it gets to the system, and what it eventually becomes at the end of the day. So just taking that methodology helps us to build this, like we are building the storyline of what the future could be like.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So in terms of specifically for African companies, just as you said earlier on, many of the sort of similar solutions to each of these parts of the life cycle don't really have enough context about the issues that African startups go through. So, maybe as my final question, how does Spire then differentiate from those external solutions or alternative solutions to cater for African companies?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and to be honest, an answer that I would always repeat every single time is because we know. We know because, I mean, it's a domain expertise for myself and my co-founder. My co-founder has been, even right before me becoming a designer, he's been a researcher and someone who's worked with people way back with his time even working with the UN. He was working as an aid partner with the UN in Maiduguri just after his universities and all of that. And for me, I have been doing research all my life, right from even working with my dad. One of the ways to succeed as a traditional businessman is finding that sweet spot to drive your customer, because a lot of businesses doing what you are doing, but you have to find that sweet spot as to why customers will come to you. And that could go from us maintaining a certain standard of quality to also taking in customer feedback and giving them what they want to get. So that taking all of that into my professional experience as a product designer, I'm just going to brag. I think I write one of the case studies you get, you would read, you get, and taking all of that experience in, it just goes far to tell that we know the market. One of the key things that is different from us and a lot of the products even these guys use is, for example, Fresh Decks didn't interview anybody in Nigeria or anybody in Nigeria to sell their product. We literally, because people are using Fresh Decks because they don't have an alternative and they just have to find a way to use Fresh Decks to fit their use case. You get, but we are saying we are not building that. We are building exactly what the people here want. You get, and that's our more, to be honest. Just being on ground, having domain expertise, and actively, we are at the core a research-driven company. I'm a researcher myself. Chukwuka is a researcher. One of the biggest hires we make throughout entire business life cycle is researchers. People always finding, because more or less like you're helping companies find what their customer want by finding what they actually also want. You get, so yeah, it's our more is in our DNA, being very, very research driven, both as professionals and also as people generally in our experience with life.
Yeah, that's awesome. To cap it off, I think this has been really exciting. There's been a lot to learn here. The benefits of really, just being honest with oneself about what is the best path to take, and actually committing to that and putting in the work to make that path succeed. And of course, even being willing to recreate oneself and to perform at the perform what is required at the next level. There's a lot of insights to learn from this. I'll say, to close it off for today, where would you say people can find you or continue to learn about Aspire?
Oh yeah, currently I'm always ranting about Aspire on my Twitter handle. So follow by Made by Charles on Twitter. To be honest, any platform you go to, just search Made by Charles. I'm literally always the only person with that handle. Yeah. But for Spire, we currently, our websites are temporarily down. We're currently undergoing serious revamp and a lot of things are happening behind the scene. But we will be live at spire.africa very soon, and you could find everything you want to know about us on there.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for being on the show today, Charles. And great luck. Yeah, have a nice day.
Yeah, you too. It's good to be here.